building two successful startups.
We built almost like a Zepto. We used to charge a 1 rupee, 2 rupee convenience fee. We used to build the company in Delhi NCR. We got acquired by quicker.
Try, fail, and then try to do another thing.
This is our second venture. That was called Zui. On our wedding date.
इससे बढ़िया marketing gimmick नहीं हो सकता.
I wanted to sell samosas. Launch a website called Tap Samosa. Like we had never raised money.
But then it becomes a liability. No?
It becomes a liability.
तो अभी आपका liability नहीं.
Correct.
What are your top 3 learnings?
Doing less is more. Magic happens in teams. 72% of founders struggle with mental health.
Welcome guys to another episode at Eco Talks. Today's founder has a very interesting journey. From starting up and building two successful startups in the D2C space and in the internet space. Then from there also building a community to help and support newcomer entrepreneurs and giving them mentorship and leadership. He has been such a guy who is in this sector for the past 10 years or more than that. So here I am to introduce you to Karan.
Thanks, Alish. Thanks for the kind intro. Super excited to be, at the Echo House, at the Echo Talks. Very excited to do this podcast and a very important message as well.
Absolutely.
So very excited to do this.
We won't reveal it till now, but of course, first we talk about it about journey. But yes, the important element which everyone miss about of a successful or let's say less successful journeys. And we speak about that as well.
Yeah.
So I think first, just to begin for our audience, let's just take it from where it all started. Give me a sense or a timeline where you thought that you want to build up your own startup or you want to start something by yourself.
Yeah. I think Vinod Khosla, he's one of the most successful tech entrepreneurs and investors in the world, right? Multiple unicorns. So he has this very famous quote. He says that a person is inspired more by the first 17 years of their life rather than the last 10. Right? And I think that happened for me as well. So, I remember I was 15 and we had to organize a cricket tournament and I used to live in this society which had 500 flats, right? And as usual, we didn't have any money, right? So, so we had to kind of arrange for that money for the tournament. So what we decided was, and we used to live in this society which had 4 floors, 5 floors, right? So people could not go down for groceries. So at that time, we built almost like a Zepto or a Blink. What they do today or Zepto or Blinkit, we did that. We used to charge a 1 rupee, 2 rupee convenience fee. We used to take people's orders, deliver groceries at their homes. And through that, we pulled in around 1200 rupees, organized that cricket tournament.
Achha.
Right? And my parents, till date, they tell कि तब से हमें लग रहा था कि like तू कुछ ना कुछ तो अपनी business side पे करेगा. My dad was a first generation founder. So he came, from a very small city in Punjab, Barnala se aaye the. He moved to Delhi. He had his starting salary of 40 rupees a month. And,
must be in the 80s now.
In the 80s. And wahan se he built, a company which is still existing today, does over 100 crore turnover. He sold that business back 10 years back to his partner, but the company still runs. Right, जैसे हम startup ecosystem में बात करते हैं, build fast, fail fast. He built something enduring, which still lasts,
And in that year.
Coming from that background.
Yeah, but that time was the whole industrial revolution was happening.
Correct.
Building that was more tough.
Yeah, and I think we come from a very privileged background where we have an option to kind of explore different things. Our parents don't pressurize us. If you want to do a podcast, acha karo, follow your passion. But for our parents, for a lot of them, it was, like their day-to-day, right? Like they had to figure out a lot of those things as well.
Because उस time क्या था, day-to-day, जो मैं रोजमर्रा की जिंदगी होती थी, वो ये experiment था.
Correct.
अब we have got the option of having a lot of access to things.
Yeah.
You can try, fail, and then try to do another thing.
For sure. Correct. So he built a very successful business. So I think that was the second anchor. He always tell me that I would be happier if you do a job rather than join my business. So he always discouraged me to kind of join his own company. And, but yeah, I think I was also stubborn. So, I think post my MBA was my first startup stint, built a social network for real estate agents.
Lovely.
Sold that company very successfully.
What year that was?
This was in 2014.
And that too in around Delhi NCR or Pan India?
This was in Delhi NCR. I built the company in Delhi NCR, but it was a Pan India kind of product.
That time was when it was a real estate boom, at least in the north.
For sure.
Crazy boom.
Yeah. And not just in the physical space, also in the internet space.
Yeah, because I think that time, and since I live here, so I can say that time, this whole area of interest was an unstructured way.
Correct.
And as people say, and I think you would agree, you always find business opportunities where you have unstructured and make it into a structured thing.
Correct, for sure. So I think we were in the right place at the right time. I think in a year we got a fantastic acquisition opportunity. I think a life-changing acquisition opportunity. So we took that. We got acquired by Quicker.
Oh, lovely.
I moved to Bangalore for a couple of years. That's where I met my wife now. She was heading growth at Myntra, and before we decided to get married, we decided to start up. And
so first become the business partner and then becoming.
Correct. And the interesting story is our second venture that was called Zoe. It was a health and wellness juice brand at that time. So Zoe was launched on our wedding date. So, we had a big party of about 500 people, and there was a Zoe ka cold pressed juice ka stall in our party.
Isse badhiya marketing gimmick nahi ho sakta.
But my
wife would have got this gimmick.
But my wife still hates me to the day. She was saying that while other brides are prepping, for their pre-wedding, they're going for all of those shoots. I was talking to juice vendors and telling them that this recipe banao, I want the labeling done, I want the product ready.
And you cannot have a better audience.
Yeah, for sure. It's a captive audience, right?
So your fufas are there, your families are there.
You get a lot of feedback. Yeah.
You always get the right feedback.
Correct.
This is a crazy story. I don't think so anyone has ever tried this marketing game.
Yeah. Then as an entrepreneur, you hustle, right? So you find opportunities in everything. So both Tanya and I built Zoe together, built it almost into 100 crore GMV brand.
That's amazing.
Completely bootstrapped, very profitable. I think early 2019, we were amongst the fastest growing health and wellness brands in the country.
I think a lot of attention was paid during that time also.
Correct.
And not that right now it is, but I think that was a growing phase. So I think one learning which I see from you is that whatever business you build is always from the growing sphere of what the business is growing on.
Correct. Yeah, but I can be very intelligent and I can say that was always the plan. But for example, my idea before Zoe was I wanted to sell samosas. I'm from North India and I said snacks market is growing, so I want to launch a website called Tap Samosa. I bought that website overnight. My wife was like, I'm okay doing a business with you, but I can't sell something unhealthy.
So this means the shadi was off the chart if that was going on.
Could be. So वहाँ से फिर हमने pivot करके from samosa we went to cold pressed juices.
So that's a very 360 turn, unhealthy to healthy juices.
Correct. Now, I'm a founder, right? So I'm a hustler, right? So she said ये करते हो मुझे उसमें भी opportunity लगी, and that's how we got about it. So I think business went really well. We were on Shark Tank as well. I think the turning point for us was COVID, right? Because even though health and wellness as a category, as you also rightly mentioned, has a lot of tailwinds, had at that time as well. We had a couple of kids at that time, right? And essentially we decided to take a parenting break at the peak of our business because we felt that our kids deserved our attention, right? And sometimes people just talk about women taking parenting break, but I think is as important for men as well.
Absolutely. I mean, when we talk about, women in the leadership position or women in the entrepreneurial or any sector, right? Why can't men be in the kitchen or men can't be in the home?
Correct.
So if we are praising or if we are appreciating in that front, we should also appreciate men like you, who take equal opportunity and that too at the peak of a business.
And we had never raised money, right? So I think we ran the business in that way because we wanted that independence and we wanted that freedom, right? If I had shareholders apart from me, we would have.
Then it becomes a liability. No?
It becomes a liability.
Abhi aapka liability nahi.
Correct.
It was just pure passion you were driving.
And also, so I'm not saying that we didn't make mistakes. Like I could have hired better. I could have delegated better. The business should not have been dependent on me and Tanya at that time, at that scale as well. So, we could have built a better org. We didn't do all of that. Right. But, we decided to take that break. So naturally the business scaled down. The world after COVID was completely different. A lot of brands came online. Your CPMs increased. D2C became very competitive. So the business started scaling down. And that's when, I decided to kind of move on. So I currently work at Meta. I always tell that it's a mental and emotional break, but also it's a great opportunity to learn how India uses social platforms, how India shops, how creators create content.
So moreover, as you rightly mentioned the story that when it was a peak, maybe you made mistakes. I think more than the emotional or the mental break you're talking about, it's more about learning how a structured company works. How better organization can it be? How can tech help you? How can processes help you?
Correct.
So I think that also can be learning.
Yeah, I think hindsight is always the best, right? And I think वो एक saying होता है ना कि people celebrate failed entrepreneurs more than they celebrate actual successful entrepreneurs.
That's really true.
Yeah, if you're running a 100 crore business and you talk about it on LinkedIn, people will say you're bragging.
Yeah.
But if you were running a 100 crore business that
And
is
then
now
you-
10 crores and you talk about your failures, people will love you. We were on Shark Tank, and when we shared this story that we took a parenting break. So we got a lot of flag from the sharks कि हमारे भी तो बच्चे हुए थे, you could have built everything better, and which I agree, like we could have done
But
things
that's
smarter.
as you say, even as a personal journey,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So they might feel it that way. But I mean, if you ask me, what you did was, again, I might have a similar thought or not. But again, this is a choice which you made.
Correct.
At your peak. Okay?
Correct.
And what are your thoughts on it? I mean, do you depend on it? Do you say
No, yeah,
it was the best decision?
So I learned a lot, right? And Shailesh, I think just like your viewpoint, I think we got a lot of love on LinkedIn and all of those platforms as well, right? So, see, would I love to be back running that business? Of course. Would I still want that business to be, 100, 150 crores? Of course. But would I still make this decision of taking a parenting break? Yes. So there are learnings. I could have built the business in a better way, but I think it's always a journey, right? So I was telling you that I've done 2 companies that have gone from 0 to 100 crores.
Yeah.
And
so you have seen the lows to the highs.
Yeah, and there's going to be like a third company as well, right?
We wait for that one. Coming on that part of it, right? So, I mean, besides this, of course, you're a heavy time investor as well, and you pick up very young talents around or what I know. What are your thoughts? Besides, everyone talks about business numbers, and I think right now in the VC culture, I think the VC mindset also changed, in terms of what your business report is, what your numbers are, how a founder personality is. People have started looking more than that. So, for you as an investor, what's more than that in a founder?
Yeah, I think I'm a founder investor, right? Because a lot of
both tags.
I've seen both sides, and like a lot of investors are essentially could be people who are not founders, like they come from a consulting background, they understand numbers very well, but maybe they don't understand the passion
The story.
and the story of entrepreneurship. And what I feel is that a founder needs to be very, very, very passionate about what you're building, right? Because entrepreneurship is a sine wave, right? Like it's never this.
It can never be.
It's this and this and
then
this. So like every day is different, right? Like one day you'll feel at the top of the world, you'll feel that you're building the best company in the world. अगले दिन लगेगा कि कंपनी बंद होने वाली है, हम कुछ नहीं कर सकते, right? And I've had numerous such journeys, and it's like if money is the only motivator for you, like you'll never be able to build a large brand, you'll never be able to sustain all of this together, right? So it has to be more than that. It has to be passion. It has to create your own dent, build something that maybe outlasts you as a legacy. And I think that's something that you look at. I mean, like you can look at the technical details, how fast the business is growing,
those can be your mandates, but those
correct.
can be your deciding factor.
Correct. Yeah. So this is one thing that I really look at in a founder or a founding team. How passionate are they about building this? Can they ride the tailwinds? Can they ride the difficult situations? Are they in it for the long run or not?
I see. I mean, you mentioned that you have seen this and then this and then found it, right? And right now in the startup ecosystem, you've seen a lot of burst of different startups across different areas. Right?
Yeah.
People are laying off, or some big brands have gone down, and shut their businesses, shut their homes, right? In your journey, what was a tough decision you had to make to, stand by your culture, stand by your ethos?
I think one of the toughest was during COVID, right? So essentially, our business came down from a 50 crore revenue to 0 overnight because you could not ship products, right? So if you're not in the essentials category. So over 3 months, you were not able to ship products. And the thought at that time was, कि अगले हफ्ते से start हो जाएगा. We did not know how long is this going to be, right? So I think we had a 60 people team at that time, and I don't know whether it was smart or whether it was foolish, but we didn't lay anyone off.
Achha.
We didn't even cut anyone's salaries, right? So so I think that was a really tough decision, because you're a bootstrap brand, you've invested all of the savings, everything into this business, and essentially now I mean there's this challenging situation. So I think that then when you realize that this is going to stay for a couple of years, we had our kids, the business started scaling down. So we kind of had to, let the team know that this is how it is. But we did it in a very structured way, So today Zoe as a team is about 10 people, which Zoe as a company still runs. Tanya still runs it. I moved on. So from 60 to 10, it still went over a period of a year. We gave people notice. We, helped them with their future hirings. We consulted them wherever we could. Right. So, but I think that phase in itself was very difficult, because as a founder, your brand almost becomes your identity. Like people know you in the startup, in the ecosystem because of that, right? Moving away from that to something else, was difficult. So I think getting rejected on Shark Tank, because of taking a parenting break and why your business scaled down, was difficult. So I think it's been an interesting last 3-4 years of ups and downs.
I'm sure it must be interesting in terms of learning.
Yeah.
In terms of your acceptability.
Yeah.
And in terms of understanding how life works actually.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. I mean, now you are in a purely tech-based company and handling content, and of course, content is far varied now. How do you foster, that innovation is also there, but there's also a stability in the business? How do you manage that balance?
Yeah, I think, for me, I think it's not very difficult, right? Because Meta as a company is very large, right? There's like 100 million users, like hundreds of millions of users across our different apps, right? And I think how a startup functions versus how a large company functions are very different, right? Like there are processes for everything. There's large teams, for everything. So I think that ways, for me, the challenge has been to come from an environment and ecosystem where you are the only decision maker, to be working with a team of 50 to 100 people and working with a large collaborative engine. I think that's been an interesting learning experience. But I think on your question on the content ecosystem, I think that's massively growing in the country, right? We have 7 million creators on Instagram today.
7 million creators. Just creators.
Just creators, right? So that's like 70 lakh people who are creating content on a day-to-day basis, creating reels, getting branded collabs, and all of that, right? And a lot of these are very young people as well, like in the age group of 18 to 25,
What's the kind of a ratio? I mean, of course,
I think, like a lot of content creators are very young, right? So essentially, for a lot of them, and you can make a lot of money on this as well.
And fast money.
Yeah. And I think there is challenge in everything, right? Because, building an audience, who listens to you, who sees your content on a regular basis, who sticks to you is not very easy, especially in a hyper competitive world, right? So a creator who has, let's say, 100,000 followers today can make about 1 lakh a month, right? Through branded collabs, but kind of reaching that point, scaling that audience,
that last push is
that's super important. And I think this world is also changing how hiring and marketing is changing, right? For example, maybe 5-7 years later, if you were to hire a marketer, right, you will say, which college did you go to? Today, if you're hiring a marketer, you're looking at whether are they content creators or not? Do they have they built a following? Can they listen to their audience? Can they get feedback? Right?
So it's more to do with how you interact with the customer.
Correct.
Your virtual customer or physical.
Correct.
Customer.
How you're listening to them. So I think that it's a very exciting ecosystem to be in, the content ecosystem. It's very fast paced. It's really evolving. And I think for me, I'm still learning. Moving from this small setup, to this really really large company.
If I did list down your top 3 learning, I'm sure of the period you spent in.
Yeah.
What are your top 3 learning which you imbibed in yourself on a daily basis?
Yeah, I think the one learning is doing less is more. I think that's one of the biggest learnings that I've got. As founders, you run a company, a car care company, you run the studio. I'm sure you're doing 100 things as well, right? So we have this personality that we want to सब करना है, और अगर हमारे पास अच्छा करना है, बेस्ट करना है, और हमारे पास अगर दिन में 24 घंटे हैं तो हम शायद 30 घंटे दे रहे हैं, right? Like that's how
most
founders are, right? A large company would say you only do one thing, right? Do it right, do it really well. Don't spend more than 8 to 9 hours of your day on that. Have work-life balance, spend time with your family, focus on your health, focus on your mental health, go out, spend time with your teammates, go on a holiday. Because what they feel is that if you do all of that, it kind of really improves your productivity and it kind of really improves your output. So I think that has been, like one of the biggest learnings that at least, I've had, and which I want to take back as well, right? Doing less is more. I think second is, I think that magic happens in teams.
Yeah.
As founders, again, because we are hustlers, हमें लगता है कि हम खुद सब अच्छा कर सकते हैं. Maybe like that's one thing that I did in Zoe as well. I want to do everything myself.
जैसे मेरे को एक बड़ी प्रॉब्लम है कि my difficulty is कि जो मेरा विजन है या जो मैं सोच रहा हूँ, how do I ensure that the person next to me or someone who is there in the team maybe is the same passion or everything or is hard working, but how do I deliver him my vision to him? वो मेरा चैलेंज रहता है कि इसको कैसे डिलीवर करूँ कि
I think यार एक ना बहुत ही इंटरेस्टिंग मैट्रिक्स होता है. I'm not sure who made this, but it's called the skill will matrix, right? So you have skill on the x-axis and you have will on the y-axis, right? So 4 quadrants हो गए. So when you're looking at a person for hiring, right? One quadrant is no skill, no will, right? So obviously those are the people you don't want to hire, right?
Correct.
Then there are people, who are low skill but high will, right? So those are people like who can kind of get your vision, who can who will put in that effort to understand it. If you invest, if you invest in their growth, if you help them train, if you give them more opportunities. There are also people who are high skill but low will, right? So maybe they'll understand your vision well, but maybe there are more individual contributors. वो उनको आप एक project दोगे, they'll do well, but they'll not harness a team. And then there are people who have very high skill and very high will, right? So I think when you're building like a large business, right? I think again Vinod Khosla का एक बहुत सा quote है. So he says कि जब तुम it's a journey, right? Like if it's a journey to Everest, so it's not only important to get the right people on that journey, it's also important to get the right people off
the
journey as well, right? So as a founder, I think you need to evaluate from the skill will matrix, who are the right people who will suitable for that. And I think also young people today have become are very opinionated, right? Like they also want to work with people or founders who inspire them. Correct. Right? Like, do you have a voice? Like people will today, young people will look at how many followers you have on LinkedIn, how many followers you have on Instagram, how many followers you have on YouTube.
Rather than me doing, I'm getting.
You have to sell your vision. You have to sell your vision, and the person has to really believe in Sailesh as a person.
Correct.
To kind of hire.
And that too, they should see the growth. And I think what I started practicing also कि forget about आपको आता नहीं आता.
Yeah.
मैं आपको एक चीज बता रहा हूँ कि आप अगर मेरे साथ आज जुड़ रहे हो तो आपको क्या बेनिफिट आज मिलेगा.
करेक्ट.
आज आपको अगर नहीं टाइम मिलेगा तो मैं आपके साथ एजुकेशन लर्निंग में हाउ मच आई स्पेंड ऑन यू इन टर्म्स ऑफ लर्निंग एंड कोचिंग यू. And when you leave this place, I want you to remember that you have learned something.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been trying.
Correct. And I think money is always a important motivator. But beyond that, the people you work with, the learning you have, the community, right, the exposure, the opportunities that you get, also really matters for a lot of people. So if you're able to provide that in your company and build your culture like that, I think that's the best way, at least that I would kind of go about it. When we used to hire at Zoe, we used to have a dating period. So, so where essentially we would first take 2 to 3 months to get that person on board. Then they would have another 3 months where there are very few obligations on us as well as on the employee. If they don't like the culture, they can move on. And after that is when, we would kind of start making them stakeholders in the company, giving them ESOPs and all and helping them grow and investing a lot of time and energy with them. So I think it's a gradual, it's a process. Yeah.
That was great. I think now coming to the most interesting.
You're going to reveal the topic of the
whole conversation, right? Mental well-being, right? And mental health, specifically in the entrepreneurs. So we keep on hearing a lot about who succeeded, who did not, who failed, and then people, people might hate me for saying this, but people have a habit of saying, he could have done this better, he could have done this better.
Yeah.
But I think as a founder, you would understand, when you're in that position itself, how difficult and how challenging it is.
Yeah.
Only you would know.
Yeah.
Not even your spouse or even
Correct.
your closest counsel.
Correct.
So, I mean, if you talk about that space, I know you prepared some stats as well. Throw some light in your whole 1 decade of this being in this space.
Yeah.
What do you think about mental space? First, we talk about.
Yeah, I think it's a very relevant topic. So kudos to you guys, for actually starting this conversation. So I prepared some stats. There was this survey by Economic Times, which was done for founders, right? And essentially, few very alarming things came out. 72% of founders struggle with mental health. 37% suffer from anxiety. 36% have burnout. 10% have panic attacks. 54% founders are super stressed about their business but they're not able to talk about it. 81% founders hide their stress. 81% founders. And I mean, like, this just goes on and it's so shocking and it's so surprising, right? So, I think as a founder, sometimes, like, it's being a founder is very hard, right? Like, your friends and family think you're not spending a lot of time with them. Obviously your business requires a lot of attention and you want to kind of divert that attention as well. But I think 3-4 things that have, at least I have started doing in my life, as I've become more intelligent and, I've done a couple of startups, is number one, I think community really matters, right? So I think you need to build a community of people who understand you, who might have gone through the same thing.
And who will be open by themselves saying, yeah, I'm really stressed here.
Yeah.
I am not in the right state.
Correct.
And I think, as you said, 81% of these founders hesitate to say that they are in stress.
Correct.
Which is very, very alarming.
Correct.
People on the net, let's say on the show, we talk about someone buying an expensive car or someone buying a big house or splurging money.
Yeah.
But the real struggle is here. As you said, money is an important factor.
Yeah.
But when you have investor money, there's always a stress.
Correct.
And it's just not a stress of running the company.
Yeah.
You also have a liability.
Correct.
That day, people talk about, oh, this founder got so much money.
Yeah.
But I think the conversation should be that he has been handed over the responsibility of that much money.
Yeah, correct.
Because that is just the responsibility of being transferring my money to your money.
Correct. So I think it's super important because they say you have a lot of events in the startup ecosystem. People would get together over a couple of drinks, they'll do that and then they'll go away, right? But वो real connections बनाना बहुत जरूरी है. There's this funny anecdote, but Tata Sky का ना campaign होता था. पूछने में क्या जाता है, right? Yeah, like somebody asked Shahrukh and he actually invited them for a dinner at his house, something like that. So similarly, as a founder, आपको भी वो attitude अपनाना बहुत जरूरी है कि अगर आपको लगता है कि there is this community of people who will understand you, so go and talk to them, build your relationships, maybe outside of work, outside of your company, outside of startup. You can do events together, you can go for a coffee together. I mean, like, there's so many things you can do.
Like for us, I mean, at Under Eco House, what we're trying to build here is doing a small, very intimate event.
Yeah.
Where founders might come up and say, I'm founder of ABC, but I don't want to hear about what your success is, how big your business is.
Yes.
I want you to talk about, as a fellow,
correct.
Let's say a roundtable five founders,
correct,
and they say, you know what, this is my challenge,
correct,
this is my fair.
Correct.
And if the conversation happens here, we want that conversation should happen only in this room. Should not be utilized. So that's the kind of culture we're trying to do.
Beautiful initiative. I used to run something called as Breakfast with Karan. Same thing, hosting small group of founders over breakfast, and I think that's super important. So I think building that community, I think it's very important. Dusra, I think I think that's my advice to a lot of young founders as well. Having a long-term view, right? Like, I mean, they say, like, people talk about BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goals, right? But essentially, BHAG, right? Like, that's how it is. Or BAHG, right? But essentially, like, if you are looking at climbing Mount Everest, right, you can't climb it on day 0, right? There's a base camp 0, 1, 2, and it's progressive, right? So have that long-term view, like, that there's going to be successes, there's going to be failures, and don't get very happy with the successes, don't get very disappointed with the failures, and kind of build your life and build your routine, like outside of work as well. Like, what are some things that you're doing? Are you taking a Sunday off? Are you, for me, for example, I play badminton. That's a real stress buster for me. I read the newspaper for half an hour, 45 minutes every day. I think it's a good switch off.
In this digital age.
Yeah, in this digital age, I think it's a switch off, right? I spend a lot of time with my two toddlers. I live with parents. So, I work out. So you have to kind of figure out 3-4 things that outside of work that you do, and then have a long-term view. And, while I work at a large big tech company, but I also feel that people should look at sometimes doing a detox from social media as well, because then you'll go on LinkedIn, you'll see crazy routines of a 20-year-old कि वो सुबह 4 बजे उठता है, उसके बाद वो आइस बाथ लेता है, फिर वो वर्कआउट करता है 2 घंटे,
and you try to follow it under pressure, not because you want to do it, but under pressure.
फिर वो $100 million की फंडिंग भी रेज कर लेता है, देन वो शाम को एक इवेंट भी ऑर्गेनाइज कर रहा है, ही इज स्लीपिंग एट 12:30, he needs 3 hours of sleep, उसके बाद सुबह उठ के वापस इज डूइंग दिस क्रेजी रूटीन, राइट? एंड उसको पढ़ के तुम्हें imposter syndrome हो जाता है, like positive toxicity, right? So essentially, so don't compare. Have a long-term view. Build a community of people who trust you, like who you can be a little vulnerable with, you can share. I think these are things that every founder should kind of invest on. And
I think the whole ecosystem should start working on this now.
Yeah.
I think one thing which I'm very impressed, and I keep on looking forward to do, zero to founders.
Yeah.
What these brothers have done is commendable, right? Of course. But in their personal space, they've taken care of health. They've taken care of the health of their employees.
Yeah.
I haven't come across such organization which ensure that your employees should be fit in health.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about I'll give you free of this and everything. But ensuring their health is also most important.
Correct.
And it doesn't only help in the long run, as you said. In the long run, the better, the fitter the employee is, the more productivity.
Yeah. I remember there was this interesting post by Zerodha which said that your bonuses are linked to how much weight you lose, and like your BMI and everything, which was interesting. But then there's this contrary thing as well. Nitin Kamath, he had such a major brain stroke, right? And he said that it was an unsustainable work routine. So as a founder, you are investing in the health of your employees, but are you doing it for yourself? So, like, you have a responsibility of your own company and you're doing it for them, but are you really taking care of yourself, right? So,
as you said, as founders, we have this habit कि यार मैं करूँ.
हाँ, correct.
मैं burden ले लेता हूँ.
Yeah, correct. And बाकी सब कुछ, I'll take care of everybody else, but who will take care of, me? And as you start growing in this ecosystem, you realize that you kind of associate with very few people. Right, like either they would be very young founders or 22, 23, 24 who have that energy, who want to hustle, who want to work 18 hours a day, and it's right at their age, it's okay if they do that. But then they would be people
responsibilities also are
lesser, right? So everybody's at a different stage. Exactly, it's a very valid point. I have 2 toddlers today. I want to give 2 hours per day with them. If somebody is younger, they can go ahead and do 18 hours per day. So don't compare, right? And find people who are in that same journey, who you can connect with and build that community.
Same similar pattern of lifestyle.
Or mil jayenge. Like I'm telling you, if you write a cold DM, it's a challenge to Aman Gupta, Amit Jain, right? Piyush Bansal, and or Vijay Shekhar Sharma. And if you write a DM or an email to them with the right intent, they will reply and they will support you. So it's about reaching out and building that community of people.
That's true. I think you and your wife have actually run a brand and taken 100 crores. Of course, you have, as I said, you start your personal relation first and then your personal relationship. Over the years, of course, as a journey is up and down.
Yeah.
I'm sure there must be, areas or times where there's disconnect.
Yeah.
How do you disconnect from disagreement in business and then not taking back to your room?
Yeah. यार हमारे तो बहुत मुश्किल था. मतलब इनिशियली आई रिमेम्बर हमारे बेडरूम में एक व्हाइट बोर्ड होता था. हम सुबह उठते थे और उसमें टू डू दिखता था. ये 5 चीजें करण ने नहीं करी, ये 5 चीजें ताने ने नहीं करी. एंड शी वाज लाइक, प्लीज इसको हटा मेरे सामने से. लाइक व्हाई आर वी डूइंग दिस, राइट? बट आई थिंक what really worked for us was that beyond being married, we had complementary skill sets from a skill set perspective as well as from a nature perspective. So like both of us have a personality that we are not very overpowering, right? So essentially, I am good at certain things. She's really good
So I think
And-
understanding that bit when you're entering into a partnership or a co-founder model is the key, I guess.
It's absolutely key. And like I keep on telling people, date your co-founders for as long as possible before you start a business with them. In fact, this is, I want to do a call out to this initiative by the government. It's called Jagriti Yatra.
Achha, what is
So Jagriti Yatra is a 15-day train journey.
For the entrepreneurs,
for young people to inspire them to get into entrepreneurship and find their co-founders, right? Go for something like that. So like sometimes we meet people inside our own circle. We are not able to find people with complementary skill sets. So don't rush into this. Like take time, meet more people, travel. You never know कहाँ से आपको आपका co-founder मिलेगा. But really take time in getting that, working with that person, because I think how you work together, your skill sets and all, how you manage stress, it's super important. It's like a marriage.
Absolutely. Great. So Karan, thank you so much for your time. I think made it bada insightful, and I had a great time chatting with you and understanding how this space works and hearing your story. And I'm sure we might bring up this breakfast with Karan back on Ego.
Yeah, for sure. I think let's change the destination of this to Echo House.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
I think the more important thing what you want to deliver is, of course, you are living in a fast-paced world right now, but having a slow life is as important as you want to grow and leave a lineage.
Yeah.
So with that thought, thank you, Karan.
Thank you, Shailesh, for hosting me. Really love the initiative, and wishing you guys all the best.
Thank you.
May it reach to thousands of founders, and
that's
really
what
value.
We need. That's the validation we need.
Yeah.
It should reach to different founders so they find the right space.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.